Hey, it's Kyle here. Today I'll be reviewing Double Crossing the Bridge by Sarah Sover. Very funny, very interesting read, a very unique story. I love this book a lot. But before I get started the review, I kind of actually wanted to tell the story of how I came about reading this book, because it's, for me, a very different way for me to find a book that I want to read than I normally go through, which is just like going to a bookstore or hearing a review about it and then kind of tracking it down. In this case, I discovered this book at DragonCon this year in Atlanta. I was attending a panel about the best fictional band. It's a panel I go to, I tried to go to, I should say, every year at DragonCon. It's very funny. It's done as a bracket style. The people that are attending kind of nominate their favorite fictional bands from movies, TV shows, and then the panelists kind of like talk about the various acts we've nominated and give their opinions, and then the audience votes who should advance each round and stuff like that. And the author of this book, Sarah Sover, was a panelist this year, and when she was introducing herself, she mentioned she had written this book, and at the end they kind of plugged it again. And it just sounded like a very interesting story, and I hadn't really read kind of a funny book in a while. I was like, you know what, that sounds interesting. I wouldn't mind reading a book that has a few laughs in it. Why don't I go ahead and get that book? And she actually had some copies for sale after the panel was over. I got this. She also was kind enough to sign it. So a couple weeks later, after DragonCon, I actually had a chance to do a little family vacation with my mom and sister. And this is one of the books I took with me. Read it in one day. Absolutely loved it. I'm so glad I picked this book up. So before I get into more of the detail, I'm going to put a link in the description box below where you can find more information about the author and her books. I would definitely encourage you to check this out. This is the only book of hers I've read, but if her other works are as good as this one, I definitely would highly recommend checking them out. So now to talk a little bit about what this book is about. And it is kind of set in a fantasy setting, but where our world, Earth, still kind of exists. This is specifically kind of set in this underground city called New Meta. And New Meta is kind of a home to, I'd say, kind of like fantastical, mythical creatures that we typically would think of as being on the bad side. I guess is a fair way to put it forth. You know, usually in fairy tales, the creatures that call New Meta home would be the ones that typically would be seen as the bad guys or the evil side of the story. And in fact, like I don't think you really have any characters that we would normally say like fall on the good side of fairy tale stories and fantasy in this story. So, for example, even like the characters here, one of their favorite snacks is like fairies. So fairies are not living here, but they are snacked on, and so are unicorns and stuff like that. Our main characters are trolls, and as you might guess from Double Crossing the Bridge, you know the old classic story of, you know, they're guarding a bridge and they want a toll and stuff like that. But this takes us and sets this in the modern world, and in this setting, parts of humanity are aware that this underground society exists, but not everybody, and probably because these creatures have the ability to kind of make humans forget them or not be aware of their existence. The book alludes at some point there was like a war between the humans and the underground, and it kind of sounds like the underground won, but they kind of forged a truce and basically allowed New Meta kind of to collect toll on this one bridge, and but they would kind of stay out of other above ground things, and then humanity would attempt to go underground or go to war with them and stuff like that. They basically would agree to pay the toll on this bridge. So because this the company that runs the bridge is insanely rich. That's all the kind of backstory there. The plot really gets into some members of this society who are just dissatisfied with their state in life. Either they're frustrated with their job, they can't find their dream job, maybe their personal life is not going the way they want. And this group of friends who kind of hang out at this one bar every day kind of eventually hatch the plan, you know, what if we rob this company that collects all these tolls? Because one thing this book talks about, this company is kind of evil, even the people who live in the city don't like it, and they kind of boss the rest of the city around, and a lot of they have the feeling like, well, if this company was taken down a peg, life would just be better, and why not us? We don't have anything to lose. Let's rob this company and all the tolls they collect. And so kind of think of like, combining like a classic heist story, Ocean's 11, for example, but with these fantasy creatures from like fairy tales and stuff like that. Mix it in with a lot of humor. So again, kind of think of like Ocean's 11, which is a very funny movie. Now this book, I should say, has a very different sense of humor than Ocean 11, but a lot of times heist movies do have that sense of humor. This book very much has this. Very funny. I laughed throughout it. It also leans into a lot on the gross out side of things to kind of emphasize, how different I think the society is from human society, but also to, I think, maybe some commentary on what human society actually is like. But very funny. The characters are all very unique, very different personalities. Some members of the crew you begin to root for. Other members of the crew is like, I'm not a huge fan of this person. Hopefully, maybe they don't end up on the winning side. I don't want to get too much into how the heist went, but I'll say it kept me guessing the entire time. I wasn't sure how it was going to play out, if they would succeed or not. If they did succeed, would everybody make it through? Who in the crew would get money, who wouldn't? Was somebody going to double cross them? Kept me guessing the entire time. And I'll say when I read the book, I was very surprised with how it ended, but it also made sense. And one of my pet peeves of books is when there's a big surprise ending, but it doesn't really track with the logic of the plot. This surprise ending, to me, the logic did track, but it still surprised me, which is the best type of surprise ending. But so if you're looking for like a very funny read, a very quick read, maybe you like fantasy, maybe you like heist type stories, I would definitely recommend this out. Like this very funny. I would say like, if you're into D&D and stuff like this, I think this might appeal to, because in some ways it almost feels like a D&D campaign, parts of it, just set in kind of this unique setting. I really enjoy this book a lot. I'm really glad I picked it up at Dragon Con and read it. I will say I didn't really touch on any of the character names. I did that on purpose because they have kind of very fantasy names, and I'm sure I'll just butcher the names, so I'm not even going to try. I'll just say, check this book out. It's amazing. I think you'll love it. You'll laugh. The heist will entertain you and surprise you, and I think after you read it, you're going, I wouldn't mind reading more about New Meta, because that was definitely my feeling. Like, you know what? I wouldn't mind reading some more about this world that Sarah Sover has created. So that's my review. Hope you enjoy it. Double Crossing the Bridge by Sarah Sover. Again, check out that link I'll put in the description box below, and definitely check this book out. Support a great author. Hope you enjoyed this review. I'll see you the next time, and happy reading.